Welcome to year 2 of A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike.
Hosted by 4-time Emmy-nominated producer
Frank Pace. And retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, former Boston Celtic guard and NBA slam dunk champion, Dee Brown.
My brothers, what's up? What's up? Can you believe that Derek's got the COVID and he's got a fever, and now we've got the task of producing this podcast with him not here.
Look at the dedication. Look at the dedication, though. Millions
of fans depend on it. Millions of fans are depending on us. The freedom of the whole freedom of the world could depend on this podcast.
Do you know that there's a woman behind you?
Yeah, that's my wife. That's no woman. That's my wife.
Oh, so what do you want to talk about today? You know, the passings in this year already have been unbelievable. Peter Bogdanovich, Betty White, Bob Saget, Tim Rosafort. Who else?
Yeah, well,
I mean, you know, Sidney Poitier and Peter Bogdanovich. Well, Peter Bogdanovich was not so predictable. Hi, Jen.
She gave a wave. She's grabbing a piece of your soda bread, though, on the way in.
Yeah, I mean, Sidney Poitier and Betty White were sort of.
Yeah, they ran a great race. You know what I mean? They.
But Saget was a tragedy. And we still don't know what happened to him. And
how old was Bogdanovich?
I think he was in his 80s. He was in his early 80s. So I want to say that he.
Yeah, I know. I wonder if anybody.
It's too bad.
The old guys used to all read the obits in the morning. The first thing they'd read, you know, they'd pick up the paper and read the obits.
If they're not in it,
they shave.
Carl Reiner said he would read the obits, and if he wasn't in it, he would have breakfast. So, Derek, how do you feel? I mean, we know you have a fever.
Yeah, I have a light fever, and I feel, you know, when you have a fever, you have sort of like a light little sensation behind the eyes.
Yeah.
And
Willie's had it a lot in his life. A light little sensation.
I actually don't. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead. Finish up.
I mean, surprisingly, I'm pro vitamin, so I have a slew of vitamins that I take all the time and are currently taking in extreme doses. So I actually don't feel I can function. So I'm pretty happy.
Do you think that taking the vitamins after the fact helps the cause as well as before the fact?
Absolutely. There are so many vitamins that you can take that reduce the viral load in your bloodstream. There's something else that I'm doing, which is like what do they call it? A nebulizer.
That's an enema form, right? You take that in enema form?
No, is that how you do it? That's a new.
I figured that's what you were doing.
I don't do it that way. Does that work?
Well,
tell me, so what else do you got? You got the runny nose? You got the pain in the chest?
No pain in my chest, no runny nose. I had a bit of a cough earlier today, but I did worked on the nebulizer. Cough went away, and
I appreciate you giving us the heads up, because you know I just had my second granddaughter November 17th, and Karen would have been crazed.
Oh yeah.
I told you guys I tested positive, right, when I came back from New York, and
that was a month ago already.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, my symptoms were.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Runny nose.
A
bit of a dry cough, small dry cough.
Yeah.
And I got a little cold sore on my lip. That was it. I mean, but I've been boosted. I don't know if it makes a difference. You know, there's so much misinformation out there. It's getting to the point now, like I'm sort of assuming everybody's going to get this thing one way or another.
I mean, that's already been stated by multiple scientists that everybody's going to get it. So
anyway, we got a great guest today, Dee Brown, former draft choice of the Boston Celtics, slam dunk winner at 6'1". We're going to get to him in a minute or two. after we continue this stirring conversation.
Yeah, you must start. Everybody and their mother that wants to know about COVID is going to turn into Mick and Mook and a Mike and find out about COVID.
Listen, people want to hear about it. They want to hear about symptoms. They want to hear about, what you experienced, and it's affecting people differently. So,
yeah, I would imagine so.
Well, you're young and virile. I mean, you're young and virile, supposedly.
This is true.
And so's Derek.
Nice jab there, Frank. Good lead. Way to read with the left. I like that.
Look at Frank. Yeah.
And so's Derek.
I've been taking vitamins. I've been taking zinc and B12 and D and vitamin C.
And all those blue pills you've been swallowing like M&Ms. Don't forget those things.
Remember what you said. You got to learn to pencil. I got to learn to pencil and no place to write.
Yeah, so I mean that's gotta help. The more pills you eat, the better off you are, right? Wait a second, let me see if those Quaaludes are kicking in.
Billy, you've been clean.
I'm clean, Frank. I'm clean.
You're clean.
I'm trying. Yeah, so I mean, it affects everybody differently, and like, hopefully, it doesn't get worse. I mean, that's the thing. What happens 5 days from now, 6 days from now? I mean, you're taking vitamins to combat it. Does it deteriorate? Does it get worse?
Well, Derek's not vaccinated, so I'm double vaccinated and boost. And if they give me another boost, I'll take it in 2 months. But everybody has to make up their own mind. I don't.
Yeah,
right. I think everybody has to make up their own mind, without a doubt. I mean, nobody's going to put a gun to your head. But
let's see what happens to me.
My wife's not vaccinated. Derek's not vaccinated. So you make your choices and you live with. So
or don't live.
Maybe you guys will get another booth man later.
Yeah. Why don't we bring on Dee Brown, Derek?
Yeah, he'll lighten it up a little bit.
Derek, can we bring on Dee Brown?
You got it.
Hey Dee, how are you?
Good, Frank. How you doing?
Good. That's my friend Billy O'Connor down here. He's the lighter one, and the darker shade up top is Derek Harris.
Hello.
How are you, Dee? Pleasure to know you, pal. Real honor.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
So, Dee, you were a first round draft choice of the Boston Celtics in 1990, correct?
Correct.
How the hell did you get there? I mean, how did
from Jacksonville?
Did you ever think when you were at Bowles High School you'd become the #1 draft choice of the Boston Celtics?
No, you know what? It was a lot of work. It was a lot of up and down. I didn't play at all my freshman year. Later, I might have played maybe 100 minutes total my freshman year. My sophomore year, got a little bit more time, and I just kept working, developing. I knew I had the skill set and the IQ to be an NBA player, but in the 80s, it was very limited. That's when I think my year was the first year they cut the draft down to 2 rounds, so it got really tight real quick.
Wow!
So you had to really be on top of your game, and obviously it wasn't any social media. It wasn't all our games were in broadcast all over the country, like the other teams. But the biggest thing was, when I was coming out, the summer before the draft was the biggest thing because you got a chance to play in a pre-draft camp. Everybody played. You went to workouts. There wasn't limitations on how many people could be there, how many days you could be there. So when I got an opportunity to play against all the best players around the country, I was ready. I was prepared. I was, always thought I could play at the next level. I just need the opportunity to be in front of the evaluators and scouts to show them that. And then when we played, even during my senior year, even when we played big teams, we talk about the big payday games. We played the Pitts, Virginias. I would have 30 against Virginia and 34 against Pitt. So when we played against the big teams, people noticed that I could play against the top players in the country.
Did you do it your life? I imagine you must have heard you're too small, 6'1", going for the pros. You must have heard that all your life.
Oh,
right?
Of course I did. Hold on. the reason why I was initially signed to go to JU because the head coach at that time, Bob Wenzel, said I was too skinny and too small. I didn't have a Division I body yet. I was 6'1", 145 pounds my freshman year.
Wow.
And he might have been right with the size, but I knew my heart was bigger, and I knew my game could speak for itself once I got around other players. I didn't sign with JU because I didn't have any D1 offers come out of high school. I didn't sign with JU until a week before school started. I had signed with a junior college in the city because JU said, "Hey, go there for 2 years. We'll take a look. If you develop your body, we'll maybe sign you." Well, what happened was, again, summertime before school started, there was a tournament. I don't know if it's like around the country, they have these different tournaments. I think in New York it's called the Empire State Games.
Yeah.
In Florida it's called the Sunshine State Games. And, it's just basically like you're in State Olympics. And we sent Jacksonville, my high school, sent the basketball team down to the Sunshine State Games. And that weekend I ended up breaking the scoring record. I averaged 37 points a game during that weekend against all the best players in the state. And all of a sudden, I had 12 Division I offers the next day.
Wow.
From every school in the South: Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida, Florida State, Miami, South Florida. But I wanted to stay home in Jacksonville because they had just got to the tournament. Jordan Smith was there. We had a really good team. Ronnie Murphy was an up and coming guy. He got drafted.
Two first round.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I wanted to definitely stay home in Jacksonville. So, it was again. It was a process getting to college and then working hard and staying focused and getting into the pros.
You went to Bowles High School, correct?
Yes.
Same school as Mac Jones?
Yeah, no, he went to my school. I didn't go to his school. It's a difference.
That's correct. That's correct.
And also Chipper Jones went there
Chipper
too.
Jones and Alan Verlander.
Yeah, Alan Verlander, yes. Hold on, funny thing, Alan Verlander was a ball boy when I was at JU.
That's funny. Because Alan Verlander then became the athletic director at JU, and now he runs a very successful company in Jacksonville.
Yeah, he does a good job. I've known his family for a long time. I just saw his dad a couple of days ago on campus, because my son goes to Bowles now and plays basketball there. So I just got my number retired at Bowles last year, first player to get the number retired. So he's very honored to be back and see the Verlanders and all the people there. But we've had some really good, players come out of Bowles, and obviously Chipper is probably the biggest name on the baseball side, Mac now on the football side, and myself on the basketball side.
Well, you guys are one short of a Mount Rushmore Bowles.
Well, I think here's trivia for you, and I think it's true. Somebody told me this. Bowles is the only high school in Florida that have three first-round picks in the same calendar year.
Wow.
Me, Chipper, because Chipper came out of high school. So, and then Clarkston Hines played football at Duke. Really good football player when the Spurrier was there. I think he got drafted by the Bills. So I don't know if that's true. I haven't researched it, but it's something that we try to be proud of being with all the great schools in Florida to be able to have that distinction.
What was the biggest transition from Bowles to Jacksonville University, and then from Jacksonville University to the Celtics?
The biggest transition going from high school to college was the physicality of the game. In college, it was, learning how to play through the physicality, play with bigger guys who were, 2 or 3 years older than you, because nobody left early. That was probably one of the biggest adjustments going from high school to college. On the basketball court, academically, I was fine because Bowles was a really good academic school. I was, ranked really high in my class, had a really high GPA, over 3.5. So academic part I was prepared for, but that part of the physicality, and also time management. Things I'm trying to teach our student athletes here at JU now is time management. All of a sudden, you went from being home around your parents all the time to you got all this free time to just your class. You got workouts, you got games, but you got to understand to manage your time a little better because you didn't have somebody here every day telling you to wake up and do your homework and things like that. So that was an adjustment. From high school, going from college to the pros, More time management because you had a lot more time because all you did was do basketball. You didn't have any class or anything like that. So to me, having that, obviously, financial literacy was a big thing, just adjustment of understanding. All of a sudden, you're going from having a Pell Grant to a lot of money,
Right.
real quick, and learning how to manage that. And I learned that a long time ago of how to manage that. So I did a really good job with my money. Never had a issue with that because number one, I was cheap as heck, so it didn't matter anyway. I wasn't a car person or a fancy clothes person. I wanted to look professional, but that wasn't really important to me. But the other thing, and the adjustment from college to pros was then the speed of the game. Right?
Wow.
Those gaps that you had in college wasn't there anymore. You had guys that were 6'8", 6'9", that would jump just as high as you and run just as fast as you. Playing against guys like Magic, playing with Bird. You used to talk about guys 6'8", 6'9", that had the skill sets of guards at 6'2". It was adjustment because the court felt like it shrunk because everybody was so big and so fast. And you thought, oh, wow, I'm as quick. I can jump as high as everybody. And all of a sudden, the guy's still there, or he's meeting you at the rim. And you're like, wait a minute. In college, I got away with that. I can't get away with that here.
Did you see J.A. Morant, that block that he had when he
Yes, I did.
He was up on the corner of the circle.
Yeah.
Of the circle, taking the ball off the rim. It's amazing the speed that you guys have.
Yeah, it was funny because somebody reposted an old video of mine versus the Charlotte Hornets in the playoffs doing the same type of block with two hands. And people forget, because again, our footage was VHS. We didn't have social media, things
Right.
that happened at 8 o'clock was done at 10 o'clock at night, or in real time. So it was kind of like if you missed it at the game on Friday, you had to wait till like Monday to get a repeat on it at the next sports show. So people were saying how fast, even in the 80s and 90s when I played Pippen and Karl Malone, and how quick and agile guys like Iverson and Isaiah Thomas and John Stockton, I would pick those guys against anybody playing right now, just because of just their skill set was just as good as those guys. But the game has evolved so much, and it's crazy. Guys like Giannis and obviously LeBron, Kobe when he was playing. Rest in peace, Kobe. But those guys now, just the speed and agility they have now to do the things, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and it must have been a big adjustment for you, who grew up watching Bird and Parrish, to be teammates of Bird and Parrish.
Yeah, the funny part, I told Artis a story a while back at one of his retirement parties, one of his 20 retirement parties that he had, because Artis retires from something every week.
Artis Gilmore was talking about.
So the first NBA player I ever met was Artis. And it was when I was in middle school, and that's when he was playing with the San Antonio Spurs, and they came to Jacksonville to play exhibition game against, I forgot who they were playing against. The Chicago Bulls. Okay. Funny, they were playing against the Bulls. He was on the team with George Gervin. And I remember Iceman because I was a guard. So I'm like, wow, Iceman. And I was like, man, but Artis is here because Artis was, obviously the JU legend. So the first time I ever met Artis, and then, obviously, at the time, because of size and strength and defensive ability and offensive ability. But then once I got to Boston and playing with Bird and McHale and Parrish and sitting in the locker room next to Dennis Johnson, who had just retired the year I got there as an assistant coach, and Red Auerbach in the locker room every day with Sam Jones and Havlicek and Kuzi and Heinsohn. Like it's like a dream come true for a basketball junkie. You're really, I was around. I remember when they did the top 50 players of all time back in All-Star game, 10, 15 years ago, 25 years ago to be exact. 15 of the guys I saw every day. I saw every day at practice. It was crazy. Every day at practice, I saw 15 of the guys. The top 50 guys in NBA history. So it was amazing because I got a chance to learn. I got a chance to see what championship pedigree looked like and felt like and smelled like. Being on the parquet every day, trying to beat Larry Bird in practice every day, shooting games with him,
Did Larry talk trash at you in practice
He
too?
talked trash to everybody. He talked trash to Red. He talked trash to guys who had, 10 championships. It didn't matter. Like that was Larry. He was arguably the greatest trash talker I've ever been around. Obviously played with, just because he just, the stories you hear about Larry, like getting to the gym 3 hours before and leaving 3 hours after, it was true. Like he put the time in, and it was good for me to see as a young player that came from obviously a small school. Nobody really knew about to understand how a work ethic was for a Hall of Fame player who was still doing it in year 10, 11, and 12 when I got there. So it definitely helped me with his work ethic and just the way he approached the game. But he backed it up. Like he backed it up. He talked crap, but he backed it up. I've seen him tell guys, "I'm gonna shoot the ball right here in your face," and he did it. I've seen him go to the bench and tell a guy, "You got to take this guy out of the game because he can't guard me." Coach, what are you doing? Like, you got to take this guy out of the game because he cannot guard me. I'm sitting there like, wow, this is crazy. I could never say that to anybody. But he did. I'm talking about pros, not some of these guys, pros. He's telling the coach to take this guy out of the game. And he has no chance tonight. No chance.
Clean too, right? He didn't do
No, never. He didn't curse. He didn't do all that stuff. He didn't. It was like very, very. It was that type of trash talk where you felt like even you getting trash talk too. You want to laugh. Like that's kind of funny, Larry. Like that's funny, and you would do it, and you would laugh. Give him a high five, smack him on the butt, and get ready for the next game. But he was that dude. Like he was a guy that really inspired me just to step on the court. Parrish was probably the biggest influence on me because he helped me with stuff with life after basketball and professionalism off the court. And Dean, when you come here, you got to wear a suit to the games. You got to look, like a pro. When you go out to restaurants, you got to, be cordial and, eat good food. So he's the guy that really is a mentor. And I still talk to Robert to this day, and Larry, but Robert more than anybody about being a professional, being a pro, how to look like a pro, how to sound like a pro, how to manage your relationships with, either, corporate or, agent. I mean, he taught me so much about the game of life, being a professional basketball player.
Did he ever tell you that he was recruited to Jacksonville University?
He never told me that because I don't think he wanted me to feel like I was on the same playing level as him. So he would have Centenary. Like, wait a minute, dude. Like, Jay, you beat Centenary. So, so.
Yeah, the first time I ever saw him, he was at, I played soccer and baseball at JU. And he was down at the baseball field with artists, and we asked him who was that, and he said there's a kid from Louisiana named Robert Parrish. We're trying hard to get him to replace me, but he ultimately went to Centenary.
Yeah. I mean, him and artists are really good friends. I know Robert came in town a couple times for a couple events for artists, but Robert is as genuine person as you will get, or a lot of my knowledge of knowing how to be a professional to Robert Parrish.
Chief, huh?
In the early mid-70s, I guess, Gil Vieira, my friend, was out here. My roommate from JU was out in Los Angeles with me, and we would go to Pepperdine games. And he saw Dennis Johnson, and he said, "Who is that?"
People forget how good Dennis Johnson was. I mean,
he was great.
The quarter of the year, the quarter of it all is when Larry Bird said the best team he ever played with was Dennis Johnson. That's saying a lot. Larry Bird played with a lot of people.
Wow. And
for him to say that, it was amazing. One thing Dennis Johnson taught me how to do, he taught me how to count dribbles.
Count what? Dribbles?
Count dribbles, yeah. There's a method to studying the basketball. Dennis Johnson was one of the best defenders.
Yeah, without a doubt.
You know how to pick people, like when you're dribbling, how to pick their dribble. And he taught me how to count dribbles. It's almost like how to count cards. When you're playing poker, there's a method to knowing how to count dribbles and be able to defend a player and to be able to steal the ball from them while they're dribbling.
Oh wow!
You got to elaborate on that. You mean like they have like a tendency to
I can't give away all the secrets, man. I can't give away all the secrets.
Come on, man.
By the way,
I'll give you a run through on it. I'll give you a quick run through on how to count dribbles.
Okay.
What happens is when a player gets in a situation dribbling the ball up the court, they have a pattern. They have a rhythm pattern. They do 2 dribbles left and then do a change and go 1 dribble right. So if you watch a basketball game and then watch this, you'll see guys dribbling up the court. You can count the dribbles. So you're not pressuring them up close yet. You just kind of uprun them a little bit to give them a little pressure that they know you're there. So watch a guy. He'll go 1, 2 left, crossover, 1 dribble right, or 1, 2 cross, 2 dribble right. So you'll see it'll be 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So all of a sudden, okay, I got his pattern. I got his dribble pattern. So now when you pressure the guy, you know exactly what he's going to do. That's his comfort zone. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So now when I pressure him, I know after the second dribble, he's going to change hands. So when he changes hand, that's when I go to the ball.
Wow.
Never heard that before. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a tell. I mean, it's like
I teach that to players, younger players. You know, when they're learning the game. I taught it to my daughter that played at Duke. She's All-American at Duke and plays in WNBA. Just won a WNBA championship last year for Chicago Sky, and she was defensive player of the year in ACC her senior year. Was all defensive team, all her years. But I taught her how to count dribbles too.
I'm going to ask you a quick question about your daughter.
Yeah.
Alex Mihaljevic, who's in the JU Hall of Fame, his son now is on the U.S. national team. He swears he's still a better player than his son.
Right.
Who's a better player, you or your daughter?
Right now, probably my daughter. She's a better shooter. She was in France the last 3 months, and she led the country in scoring 25 a game. So she's a better player right now. She can shoot the ball. She was a pro. You know, I would never shoot against her because she's one of the best shooters in the world. You know, and I know I'm her dad, but you know, a lot of people will back me up on that comment that she can really shoot the basketball.
Well, you were 41% shooter from 3-point range 1 year also.
Yeah, but she's been 40-some% for a long time.
Pretty good shooter.
But yeah, she's good. She's a good player. I'm very proud of her.
Go.
So, Dee, you were talking a little about artists. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about artists? Because I've known him since he was 19.
Yeah, artist is, again, arguably, no question, not even a doubt, the best player to play at Jacksonville University. And I remember the first NBA player I ever met was Artis. I met him in Jacksonville. I think he was playing with the Spurs, and they were having an exhibition game against the Bulls. And I was in middle school, and I said, "There's no way I could be a professional basketball player. This guy is so big." And I remember, and everybody knows Artis, don't shake his hand. I shook his hand as a kid. I shook his hand as a kid. I said, you know what? He swallowed my arm, and I think he broke about 3 of my fingers. And I was like, well, where's George Gervin at? I want to meet George Gervin because I was a guard. You know, I wanted to meet Iceman. But I remember that because you know, I don't know if that was the last NBA game that ever been played in Jacksonville. I really need to do some research on that. But him coming back to Jacksonville, playing the NBA game, me being from Jacksonville, seeing that was just kind of inspired me more because he went to the school here in town. You know, it was just iconic. Just, you know, when people say, you know, larger than life, that's literally what Artis was when he came back to Jacksonville playing, you know, for the San Antonio Spurs. And I got a chance to meet him, and it just kind of got me revved up saying, you know what, he's big. I got a lot of work to do, but, you know, it was great to see somebody that played at the local college, university, and make it to the pros.
Well, speaking of icons, you became iconic in 1991.
Yeah, that's what they say.
with your slam dunk. Why don't you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, it was very, very humbling, number one, to be in that contest because when you're young, the All-Star game had so many different things going on, but the marquee event was a dunk contest. Like people, celebrities, and all the players would go to the dunk contest. I remember watching Dominique and Jordan and Spud Webb and Kenny Walker and Larry Nance. You know, that was the event. Like if you was in a dunk contest, no matter if you won, you know, everybody's watching. Like everybody, every celebrity wanted to be there on the court and root you on. So when I got opportunity to be in the dunk contest, I was a late addition. Like I was a feeling. I think somebody had dropped out, and one of my coaches on the team petitioned for me to be in it because the year before in college I had won the college dunk competition, and you know, being with the Celtics, I had a lot of dunks, which nobody was like, "Wow, Celtic players don't dunk." Like you got Bird and Kellen Paris, they just do layups all the time. And all of a sudden, you got this young kid and catching alley oops and dunking the ball. You probably should put him in a contest. It'd be good. So being the first Celtic in a dunk contest was an honor and privilege. And the great part about that year in the dunk contest also was that year we had the best record going into the break. So our coaching staff was all-star coaches. Larry, Kevin, and Chief was also at the all-star game as players. So we had a whole contingency of Celtics there representing in the contest in Charlotte. So the best story I have, obviously, winning the contest was great. Pumping up my shoes at Reebok was, you know, everybody talked about. The best story I have for the dunk contest was I was sitting in the crowd. All the contestants were sitting together. It was, you know, me, Rex Chapman. Otis was in the contest. Otis Smith was in the contest, which was funny. Exactly. Two you guys at the same dunk contest the same year. I think Otis came in last, but don't tell him I said that. And then a couple other players, Kendall Gill. But I was sitting next to Sean Kemp, and we didn't have our jerseys on yet. We were kind of sitting in the crowd, and I had, if you look back, I had that little Gumby flat top haircut then, and Sean Kemp had the same one. So kids are coming, "Hey, Sean, can I get your autograph?" And I looked like I was 12 years old anyway. So one of the kids goes, "Hey, Sean, is that your little brother next to you?" And I got so mad that, I'm going to destroy Sean Kemp in this contest. This little kid just called me his little brother. And Sean was a year older than me, but he was like 30, you know. And that was motivation to me. Like, you know what? People know who I am, but, you know, this average fan trying to get Sean Kemp's autograph thought I was his little brother because I was sitting next to him with the same haircut. Pissed me off. And the rest is history. I always, if you can look behind me and point, Rhett's there. That's a trophy.
Wow.
Trophy from the slam dunk competition that I won. And another story, and Sean Kemp can vouch for this because I think he said it on the air one day doing an interview. When I retired in Orlando, I went to the front office, and Sean Kemp had signed with the Orlando Magic. This when I was with Orlando Magic after I retired, and me and Sean lived in the same neighborhood. So every once in a while, Sean had to drive past my house to get out the neighborhood. So every once in a while, I knew what time he was leaving to go to practice because I was in the front office. I would come outside with a slam dunk trophy and hold it by the shoes I drove by and do like this, and he would get so mad. That's hilarious. And I go, first place, and he would get so pissed off. Every time he drove by to see that trophy after I retired, he hated that. But
that's so amazing. 6-1 to win that contest against those guys, Dominique Wilson, Sean Kemp, pumping up the shoes.
Yeah, it was great.
Before we get off of that, I had a question about the Reebok. So the pumping of the shoes.
Yep.
Was that
that was my idea. I already had a Reebok contract already.
Oh, so that was my next question. So you had a contract with Reebok.
Yeah.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Yeah. So they didn't know I was doing it at all.
Let me ask you: Were you working with Roberto Mueller and Chester Wheeler at that time?
No, I was working with Joanne Borzakian, and who was the global marketing manager. She was the first probably female shoe global marketing manager in pro sports, and I was working directly with Paul Fireman. To be honest, I was working with the boss because the good part about being in Boston, that's where Reebok was based. It was based in Stoughton at that time, so I got a chance to be around all the executives and hang around with Paul Fireman and talk with him. And to this day, I still have a Reebok contract, and so does my daughter. She was one of the first female players, WNBA players, to have a Reebok contract. So we still going Reebok. We're still doing it.
That's great. So how much did you practice that dunk? Because you
I
put
didn't practice it. I made it up on the spot.
on the
Never did
spot.
it. The reason why I did that dunk, it was kind of a evolution. So going into the final round, it was me and Sean Kemp, and I did a really good dunk. Sean did a pretty good dunk, and I was leading. But I always remember that if you go back to every dunk contest, the great dunk contest, every winner had like a signature dunk. Something that was their dunk that people always like, when they saw it, they go, oh, that's Michael Jordan. You think of Michael Jordan dunk contest, you think, what? Take him for the free throw line. You think about Dominique Wilkins, you think about the power of windmill, And so in my mind, I said, I got to do a signature dunk that nobody's ever done before that will identify that's Dee Brown's dunk. Well, initially, I was going to do a dunk I was going to have a hat on, a Reebok hat on, of course, marketing. They did tell me to do that if I got to the finals. Have a Reebok hat on, tip it to the crowd. So if I'm visualizing, I'm tipping the hat to the crowd and dunking the ball with my left hand. Well, they told me I couldn't use props. We couldn't use props in the dunk contest then. We couldn't jump over people or chairs like they do now in cars. So they said, no props. So I was like, oh gosh, I got to think of something. I got to do something different. So literally, got the ball in my hands, running to the basket, going, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So as I went to the basket, I'm going, you know what? I'm going to close my eyes. So I closed my eyes. I said, well, nobody's going to really know if I close my eyes. So I said, I'm just going to put my hand over my eyes. So as I'm jumping, my eyes are closed. I put my hand on my eyes, and as I'm moving, my arm kept moving too into my arm, and then I dunked it. That's how the dunk became. It became that dunk by me making it up on the spot.
Wow.
I've never done a dunk before that. And I think I might have done it twice after that. Never done it since.
Tell the truth. Did you peek at all?
Oh, of course not. You can look at posters. You can look at all kinds of video. That's why I closed my eyes and put the arm to make sure everybody knew that I couldn't see. Now it's funny. The next year, I couldn't be in a dunk contest. I had knee surgery, and Red didn't want to be in a dunk contest. They did. You're getting back healthy. I don't want you to be in a dunk contest the next year to defend your title. Red Auerbach tells you can't be in a dunk contest. Guess what? You're not in a dunk contest. I was a little upset because it was back home in Florida, in Orlando. So I wanted to defend my title in Orlando. So I didn't get a chance to do that because I was coming off an injury, and Red was like, no, you're not doing that, which I respected 100%. The next year, Cedric Sabalas won with the penny. I tell him, he said they're blindfold. I said they're sheer pantyhose because he could see. So he could see his dunk. And that's all the time I said, you had sheer pantyhose on. You didn't have no blindfold on. You copied my dunk and with some pantyhose in your eyes and try to copy me. So it's fine. It's cool.
How do you feel winning that contest affected your career?
Obviously, literally, I went from a starting rookie point guard on the Celtics for a team that won a championship to a worldwide icon. Literally, overnight.
Wow.
I remember the next, the contest was on Sunday night. The next day I was on, Reebok put out a whole ad, full-page ad on the back of USA Today, because back then USA Today was where we got our news, because it was on social media.
Right.
Everybody read USA Today, and you get the red section was sports, and the whole back ad was me pump out my shoes and go, last night a young kid brought the world to his feet. That was the slogan because I was pumping out my shoes. It was pretty cool. And then we went on a road trip. Right after that, the dunk contest. And I remember coming out of the hotel, and everybody ran past Larry Bird and got my autograph. Wow. And I was like, what is going on here?
Wow.
And Larry had a famous quote, before everybody wanted to shoot like me, now everybody wants to dunk like D. And I remember him saying that in an interview after that happened. And it was crazy. To this day, if I don't get asked to if I don't see a person that put their arm over their eyes or bend down to pump up their shoes, they can have on penny loafers. They will still pump the shoes up. Hey, I remember when you did this. And they can have on dress shoes from going to church, and they would bend over and pump up whatever shoes they had on. Still to this day, at least once a day, I get
That's
that
wild.
happening. So it's
Once a day, these many years later.
30
That's
years.
amazing.
30
You had no
years.
idea, did you?
Yeah.
That the marketing ploy was going to be that effective? I mean,
I didn't do it. I didn't, like I said, I had a Reebok contract already, so I didn't do it to be an icon or 30 years later to be talking about it. I did it to win the contest. I did it like I get the crowd behind me. My whole mindset at 21 years old in front of 30,000 people and everybody on TV watching, and all these celebrities on the sideline, from Madonna and Will Smith and all these people sitting there. I'm trying to win a contest. The biggest thing I cared about during that contest was getting that big $25,000 check. You know, the big check, the fake check. I was happy about that than anything. Like, oh wow, because when you watch it on TV, like, that's amazing. They got a big check. Like, it's fake check, but it was like the whole thing was just getting a big check and holding it up was always something I always wanted to do my whole life. I don't know why. I don't care if it was a game show or whatever. But to do that was like the best. That was the best experience of my life.
And I'm sure Reebok
They made a lot of money. They made a lot of money.
They did big check also.
Yeah, they made a lot of money. I think after the contest, the next 12 to 18 months, we outsold Jordans. The Reebok pump outsold Jordans, and then that's when, quote unquote, the shoe wars started. They said I started the shoe wars because once I did that, Nike went on the offensive. Like, okay, we gotta step it up now and get these athletes. So, you know, that's what they tell me. Like, you really started the shoe wars when you did the thing with the shoes. Like, you pump it up, and all of a sudden, Reebok became. At that time, Reebok was really right behind Nike, in selling footwear.
Yeah.
You know, and then obviously over the course of time, we signed. Reebok signed Iverson and Shaq, and Sean Kemp signed with Reebok after that. So got some big names, but again, Nike was the big monster, and they had the best player of all time, which doesn't hurt, in Jordan. And but Reebok, we're still pumping. We still got things going on, and I'm excited to still be part of the brand, and my daughter too. So it's good.
You mentioned Jordan. Why don't you talk a little bit about defending Mike or playing against Mike?
Well, you hope he missed. But basically, that was it. Really. like people say, how do you guard Jordan? You hope he missed. Like, basically. And you know what? People ask me, like, was Jordan the hardest person for you to guard? I go, no, he really wasn't, because Jordan would just post me up and shoot over me. Like, he would try to post me up. He would obviously 3 or 4 inches taller than me and stronger than me. So he wasn't hard to guard, because when he posted me up, I would just scream for help. So I would get a double team. Like, all right. So he wasn't the hardest guy to guard. The hardest guy for me to guard, there's two guys the hardest guys for me to guard. One was Reggie Miller, because he never stopped moving, and he came off screens. And back then in the 90s, they set screens. Antonio Davis and Dale Davis and Rick Smits, and those guys hit you really hard.
Wow.
Ours could stick his butt out pretty good too.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I mean, the screens you can set in the 90s was amazing. That's why I retired. Those guys set hard screens. The other guy was tough, was Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway was a beast, because at 5, he wasn't 6 feet. He might have been 5'11", but he was so aggressive. He could get past anybody. And even at that size, if he felt like, you know what, I don't feel like, going past you off the dribble, I'd just post you up at 5'11", and would do a heck of a job as a poster player. Like, he was a really good poster player for a guy that small. So those two guys, for different reasons, were the two hardest guys for me to guard in my career. But MJ he was different. Like, he brought something to the game where every time he had the ball, people would stand up. Like, I've never seen that before. Like, wow. Or if he's at a free throw line, like, it did, again, it's in new age now because of all camera phones and social media, things like that. I remember the first time playing in Chicago Stadium against Michael Jordan, and he was at a free throw line. And as soon as he got ready to shoot it, all these flashes. You would think you were at like a wedding. Like, it was like so many flashes. I don't know how he made a free throw playing at home or in a road because there's so many camera flash, real cameras, like not the, like real authentic cameras or flashes, and it was amazing. I mean, it was amazing to see a person every time, not once, not the first quarter or the fourth quarter. Every time he got to the free throw line, it was 30,000 flashes, and that kind of just air. I hate to use the word, but air about him can never, to me, but anybody can never be duplicated.
That's really incredible. I mean, that's like it's like a president or something. The amount of flashes going off, it's crazy.
Amazing. It was so deafening loud. Like, to me, the best place to ever play a basketball game was the Boston Garden. I'm biased, obviously, but the old Boston Garden, because all the championship banners that were hanging over our head, the parquet floor, we had no cheerleaders, we had no replay scoreboard, we had obstructed view seats. Like, the locker room was the size of my closet. Like, it was real basketball. Like, it was the essence of basketball. And you hear our players, the opposing team, complain about the dead spots and Red turned the heat off in the locker room and the showers are cold. Yeah, those are true. Those are true stories. So, but the best place to play to me was Chicago Stadium when Michael was there, because the atmosphere there was so crazy. Because my rookie year was Jordan's first championship. So I'm going over my career. I played 12 years in the NBA. Eight of my first 12 years in the NBA, there were two champions. Michael won 6, Elijah won 2. So in 8 years, it was 2 teams that won championships.
Wow.
All right, and the reason Houston won championship because Michael retired those 2 years in between. So literally, Michael Jordan probably could have won 8 championships in a row. And then the last 3 years was the Shaq and Kobe years. But that's why I say Chicago Stadium was the most amazing place to play. Madison Square Garden's close second. I would give 2A and 2B, just because it's the Madison Square Garden and all the history there as well. But Michael just made Chicago Stadium just a different place to play in because of how loud it was, sold out. Just and it was Michael just was that type of show. He was the greatest entertainer in sports at that time. Wow.
I heard a quote from Larry Bird. He said that he found himself sometimes watching Michael Jordan while he was playing it. Did you find that?
I think all players did that.
Okay.
Like, they really watched him. You're on the bench watching him. You're on defense watching what he's going to do. Mannerisms, tongue hanging out. The walk, chewing the gum, the bald head, the shorts. Like, you watch all that stuff. There's guys. There's NBA guys that are top 50, 75 guys that mimic Michael Jordan. Like, I love LeBron. Don't get me wrong. Like, LeBron is top 5 player of all time to me. Nobody's mimicking LeBron. Like, people wear bald heads. Like, he made bald head look good. Like, people shaving their heads. Like, LeBron's, he's fighting the bald head, as you could tell. So Michael Jordan wore the bald head, and everybody wanted to wear it. Everybody wanted to wear the big, the big shorts.
That's a really good point, actually. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Think about it. I mean, people will tell you. And again, there's guys now. Again, I'm older, and I never got a chance to play against. The year I retired was the year LeBron came into the league, so I never played against LeBron. I've worked with him plenty of times at camps and different events. So he's unbelievable person, like one of the best professional athletes in history from all things that he does. There's levels of superstars, and there's Jordan, and then there's everybody else. That's just my personal opinion.
Right.
And take away, because when you change the fabric of the game, the first 2 people to beat that changed the fabric of NBA basketball into what it is now is Magic and Larry. Like, those 2 guys in the 80s, they changed it. They changed it. People started watching it. They loved it.
I'm guessing that maybe you're too young to remember Elgin Baylor.
No, I know. I remember Elgin. I remember Elgin.
Dr. J.
Yeah, but I went through a couple. Dr. J was probably my favorite player. He was my favorite player growing up. And I had a chance to work with him for a few years in Orlando. We worked in the front office together, and his office was right next to mine. So to be able to watch a guy that you grew up watching and trying to do all the fancy up and under moves and things like that, and a dunk over, Michael Cooper. I remember those. So I remember everybody. You gotta understand, Frank. I'm a basketball historian. Like I know. I can go back to the 50s and run all players now. Elgin Baylor and Jerry, and obviously people forget about how good Wilt and Russell was, and Oscar. So yeah, there's a lot of great players. I'm talking about changing the game, the fabric and dynamic of how the game is played. Elgin was one of those guys that did it. Obviously, Wilt did it because you had to change rules because of him. Right. You had to change the free throw rule. You had to change the over the backboard rule. You had to change the lane line. Yep. So I understand the rules, but I'm talking about guys that people just mimic. Yeah. People that just wanted to be like. I hate to be like Mike, but like people that was a real thing.
They just want to take it back to their generation.
That's fine. That's fine. We all our generations all have great players. But that's why I've never been a person that compare players in different generations, because the game is different, the rules are different. Less teams, more teams. I can only speak on, like everybody can, and that's what they should speak on, the people that they got a chance to see and play against. Like I said, I played against LeBron, played against Kobe when he was younger. To me, he was the closest to the Jordan. LeBron's more closer to Magic to me. That's my comparison of those two great players. Well, I always base everything on two things. Do you win? And how do you change and make people around you so much better? Well, that's why Russell to me is the greatest winner. No question. Well, Russell got 11 rings. So there's no question who's the greatest winner. He had great players around him. He had 8, 9 Hall of Fame players around him. Michael won 6 rings, never lost in the finals. He knows history and things like that. Had Scottie Pippen. But, you didn't have a lot of Hall of Famers around him, and I think, LeBron's the same way. LeBron doesn't have a lot of Hall of Famers around him. Kobe had a few. So, again, we all could talk about generations of players. And I'd never do the top 5 players of all time. It's so hard to do that. So many great players. It's unfair to do that.
I got a rendition of that question, and we'll ask so you can think about it while we, in the meantime of Billy coming on. If you were to assemble a team pre-Jordan and post-Jordan, you can go as deep as 10 players for a bench or 5 players just to make it easy. Do you think, because you mentioned something earlier about the game has changed, right? So if you were to assemble a pre-Jordan team, do you think that team would be able to beat a post-Jordan team?
Ooh, what rules would they play by? Would they play by rules of the 70s and 80s, or would they play by current day rules?
I think the rules would have to be current day rules, because I think the rules.
Yeah, the current day. If you do current day rules, you have to do it current day players, because that's the game. Because you got to understand. 19, and correct me if I'm wrong, Frank. 81 was the first year 3-point shot.
Okay.
In the NBA, not in the ABA.
Yeah, the NBA. Well, we're talking about NBA players, because all the best ABA players eventually. Yeah, by to the NBA. By
76, 77, they were in the NBA.
Yeah. So again, I'll give an example. I led the NBA in 3-point shooting made in 1998 with 135 made threes. 135. I average maybe 3 attempts a game. There's guys now averaging 15 attempts, 3-point attempts a game now. Yep. Like 15 attempts a game. Teams can average that. And
that's how Steph Curry has changed the game.
Yes.
Probably monumentally as much as, or more than Michael, because now everybody just goes to the 3-point, post up, and they kick it out.
Yeah, the style has played. I think he changed the style of play, because it became positionless basketball. It became 3 things that they say: you want to make a certain amount of threes, you want to get into the paint, shoot layups, or shoot free throws. The mid-range game has been taken out of the game. Nobody shoots 2s anymore as much as they shoot 3s. So he's definitely has changed the way the game is played. by his shooting. And obviously, you can't. It was him, but Clay helped as well. Having one, as you saw when Clay was out, having one shooter doesn't change the game. Because they were not really good when Clay was out. They were a good team, but they're a lottery team when Clay was out. Having two shooters like that, it's a lot different. So yeah, that's a tough question.
Okay.
Because of rules, just because of rules. Now you played 90 rules. That's almost in the middle, like hand checking, impeding play, hard fouls that are not technicals. It's a difference. It's a difference.
If you look at some of those fouls, Kurt Rambis fouling.
They'd be put in jail.
Yeah. No, absolutely, they would be put in jail. It would be outlawed for.
They'd be banned. I mean, I played, and again, this is when the rules are still a little changing. I played with Charles Oakley for 2 years in Toronto, and that was the happiest day of my life because he hit people so hard when he was in the Knicks, and you never ran. I remember my wife just telling me this all the time. She goes, this is a funny story. She goes, you never have a good game in New York. She goes, I don't understand. Do they have razor blades in their socks? I go, no. They just hit hard. Like she really thought that the players are like really thugs, like tough. I say no, they hit really hard. So I'm not driving in the lane against the Knicks or the Pistons because my rookie year, the bad boys are still around. They were still the champions before Michael won. So I remember getting hit by Mahorn and Beer and Sally and Rodman. And they were coming fouls. Just get up, pick your teeth out, go to the free throw line, shoot your free throws, don't complain. And that's how the game was played then. So, again, it's hard to compare errors. Everybody's great in their own right and own era. And I try, and I don't know if this answers a question. I try to identify a little more specific, like most dominant, best offensive player, best defensive player. Like to me, the most dominant player to ever play the game is Chamberlain.
Wow.
I like Shaquille, but the both. And again, he was playing against guys who are 6'5" and they weren't athletic. That's not his fault. Like whose fault is that? The same way people say LeBron's just bigger and faster than everybody now. Well, whose fault is that? That's nobody's fault. You dominate the era that you're in. So the most dominant player in NBA history to me is Chamberlain. He has almost every record,
right.
Or a top three of any record that's substantial. Chamberlain names in it. For scoring, for rebounding. The dude never fouled out a game. Like people forget. Like Richard never fouled out a basketball game his whole career.
Yep.
We averaged more than 48 minutes one year. Like, how is that possible? Like, that's all. How you average more than a game?
So much for load management, huh?
Exactly. I got a better story for you. All right. So Red Auerbach, it was 1 year. I think it was my 5th or 6th year, and I think it was a year after Reggie Lewis had passed away, and our team had changed. I became the face of the franchise. I became the guy. And I wasn't ready for that. Like there was a lot of, you go from Larry Bird to obviously transition to Reggie Lewis, who was supposed to be the face of the franchise. He passed away, and all of a sudden that became my job. I was a face of the franchise, a leading scorer. Everybody knew who I was. So that year, I was averaging, I think 39 minutes a game, almost 40 minutes a game, and I'm playing against Mitch Richmond, Gordon Jordan, chasing Kevin Johnson around, all these guys, and I'm tired. I'm sitting in my locker, I'm exhausted. I think a game I played like 46 minutes. I was exhausted. I'm sitting in my locker, right? So Red comes in the locker room and looks at me and Dee, what's wrong with you? And I used to call him Arnold because everybody called him Red. I said, Arnold, I'm exhausted, man. I'm averaging almost 40 minutes a game. He looks at me, he goes, you know what? Bill Russell. I said, oh, here we go. So he goes, yeah. He goes, Bill Russell. Yeah, exactly. That kind of. He goes, Bill Russell averaged 47 minutes a game one year. And you know what? That MF still owes me a minute. I'm still trying to get that extra minute from him. I'm saying, okay, you know what? I'm not going to complain anymore about playing time after that story. Like, he was really upset that I was complaining about playing 40 minutes. We paid for 48 minutes a game. Bill Russell owes me a minute. I go, okay. All right. You know what? You're right, Red. I would never complain about playing time ever again.
Old school. Old school.
I loved it. I loved it. And you know what? It made me respect playing the game more when he said that. Because, again, number one, to put me in the same category as Bill Russell for anything was an honor.
That's true.
And then number two, his mindset was like, listen, you play 48 minutes. We don't do load management. You play. If you can get up and play, and you're not going to pass out and die on the court, stay in the game. And I respected that by Red, because it didn't matter who it was. That was his mindset.
Let me ask you a question, Dee. We talked about transitions. You grew up in Jacksonville, Florida. Derek grew up in Mississippi. It must have been a strange transition from you to go from Jacksonville all your life to Boston.
Yeah, it was. But you know what? I'm going to tell you the biggest transition. You're going to be very surprised when I say this. The biggest transition was how to drive in snow. that was the biggest transition. Never saw snow before until I got to Boston. So I'm in my house getting ready for practice, and I look outside and it's snowing. And I'm excited. I go, wow, this is great. Snow for the first time. Boom, boom, boom. And my car is covered with snow, it's icy, and I didn't know how to get it off because I'm from Florida. What do I do? How to get this off? So I go in the house to get a spatula to scrape the ice off the thing because I didn't have, and I was late for practice. Rookie year. Oh gosh. So I scrape the ice off with the spatula, get to practice. Larry Bird looks at me like, really, Rook? Like, you were late for practice? I go, Larry, I can only drive in snow. I know how to drive in snow. So again, we have a media session after practice. He goes, yeah, the Rook was late for practice. He didn't know what an ice scraper was. Boom, 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 boom. So we play at the Garden like the next day or 2 days later. In my locker, I had 10 ice scrapers sent by fans. Oh, D, it's okay. Larry's just being mean. I had 10 ice scrapers. I had the ones with the hook on it, with the brush. I had the double hand. I had so many ice scrapers. So that was the biggest transition. But the other transition was, yes, it was different. People talk about Boston being a town that didn't like their black athletes, and things happen, and being racist and things like that. And, I met my wife before I got to Boston. She happened to be from Boston. And it's my favorite city, hands down. Obviously home is home, but my favorite city was to live in, other than being home in Jacksonville, was Boston, because the people were great, the fans were great, they were very knowledgeable. Did I have experienced some type of racism at times? Yeah, I got pulled over by the police officer one time and thrown to the ground because they thought I was a bank robber, and had guns on my head. So yeah, I had that experience when I was there when I first got to Boston. But that never defined what I thought about the city or the people or the fans. And to this day, I still got family up there. I go up and visit. They treat me like, a king when I go up there and visit the team and walk around the city. So, yeah, it was a transition, and I remember because being so young, not understanding the things that Bill Russell went through and Sam Jones and those guys, Casey Jones, that went through when they were there, and all the stories they would, you would hear about and tell. So I never dismissed that at all. But I can honestly say my experience being up there and going in Boston, I enjoyed very thoroughly.
Now you've come full circle. You're back at your alma mater. Why don't you tell us what you're doing there? Because
yeah, it's great to be back home. Yeah, it's great to be back home. I've been obviously for the past 30 years in professional sports, either as a player, coach, or executive. The last 5 years before I came back to Jacksonville University, I was vice president of the Clippers and GM of our G League team out in LA. And, you get to a point where, been in the league for 30 years, your kids are moving out the house, your youngest son is starting to play high school basketball, and you're missing a lot of those activities. And, COVID hit. and then I got a chance to spend more time back home. And at that time, I was living in Atlanta. And I was like, you know what? My mom and dad still live in Jacksonville. They're getting older. I got siblings that are still here. I said, you know what? I really need to get back closer to my family, number one. And number two, the things that I did in pro sports, I think I can translate that into college sports. Personal and professional development for student athletes, coaching development for our coaches, building culture, helping our student athletes with not just being great students, but being great servants, mentors, understanding how to build their emotional health, their mental health, their financial health, their relational health, their spiritual health, things that I did with the Clippers with our players. So I got the opportunity to talk to President Tim Koss, who's great, another JU alum that played baseball, and our athletic director, Alex Wicker Gilbert, probably right in the middle of COVID, and say, hey, is there opportunity that you would come back and work for a university if you left professional sports? I say, I don't know, I'm trying to figure things out. And you know what? I made the decision, say, you know what? I think this would be the best for me personally because it gets me inspired to help these young student athletes and coaches on campus. And the other thing is to be back home. So basically, my position is executive director of University and Athletic Relations. So I do all those things I just mentioned with our student athletes and coaches. Be a culture officer for our athletics department. Also on the university side, I'll do things within the community, go do, obviously sponsorships and, help fundraise and go out and speak to different groups. But I assist not just the basketball programs. I assist all the programs. We got 17, varsity programs here. So I get a chance to spend time with women's basketball, lacrosse, soccer, baseball, softball, whatever it is, and help those student athletes become better versions of themselves based on my experience in being in professional sports for 30 years and bring those techniques and resources and things to them. So it's been very, very rewarding, satisfying. And the most satisfying thing is just to be able to come back and see your jersey hanging in the rafters and people kind of like to be there and be excited that you're on campus and giving back in a way to help them become better, not just better athletes, but better people as they move forward. I want them to be better people and really love their JU experience while they're on campus. So when they leave, they can look back and go, you know what, we really have people that cared about us. As not just because we can hit a baseball or dunk a basketball, that they really care about us as being, servants for Jacksonville University.
And with people like Tim Koss there and Chris Sapienza, they're really first class administrators, people. And they're really doing a fine job for JU. One little piece of advice I would give you, if you want to give everybody at JU a history lesson, you should see the 2017 documentary I did called Jacksonville Who.
I saw it.
Did you?
Yeah, of course I did.
It's a great.
All right, of course I did.
It's a great piece, and
it's unbelievable piece. You did an unbelievable job. It was great.
Yeah, we thought so too.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Derek, do you have any final questions? Billy?
Yeah. I got one. Dee still has the record Jacksonville U for steals, 88 steals. You weren't counting dribbles back then, man. What were you doing? What was your secret? What was your secret?
I really can't do it. I was cheating too much on defense. I cheated too much on defense in college, and I got away with it. And then it's funny that you say that. So when I got to the Celtics, I think my fourth or fifth year, after I learned really good how to count steals, I ended up breaking Larry Bird's steal record in the Celtics with 150 in the season. So it did work. So I want to say something real quick, Billy, like something. I'm listening to you. I close my eyes. I'm like, is that Dickie V? That voice. I'm like, this voice is unbelievable. You got a great voice.
I've got that before, man. When I was doing comedy, people said, "You got to do him, man. You got to do him. You sound just like him."
It's amazing. It's amazing. We got a great voice. I love it.
Thank you very much, man, for coming on. You were the stories you told. And nobody can know what it's like to be on the court with Jordan and talking about the photographs going off and everything unless you were there. Nobody can tell that story, you know. But so it's great to hear from you, man.
I appreciate it, guys. No,
it's great stories, man. Great.
Derek, you had a question?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions as usual. You see, at the beginning of the interview, you talked about sort of being overlooked in the beginning. Do you think that's still happening with players today? Like, do you think?
No, I think I don't know if players are overlooked. I think they're undervalued.
Okay.
So I think they're not overlooked because you can find a player anywhere. Like, I mean, there's guys in high school that got more social media following than professional athletes.
Right.
Like, there's guys that got 3 million followers and they're in high school. Nobody's being overlooked.
Okay, so there's more outlets for opportunity.
You know, there's opportunity for everybody, but undervalue is different. I think players that maybe come from smaller schools, or, and to me, the undervalued part are kids that stay in school. Those kids are getting undervalued more than anything. Like the kids that stay in and are juniors and seniors. Well, why, you know, now you're questioning why they stay in school. Maybe I want to get my education, and it wasn't all about basketball, and I had to develop a little bit more. You know, like there's no way that half the people I know that came out of my class could have came out of their sophomore, junior years. They just wasn't physically ready yet, because in the NBA in the 90s, they were grown men. Like literally, the league was an old league. And I say old league, all your superstars are 27, 28, 29 years old. Now, the league, all your superstars are 18, 19, 20 years old. So when you come in now as a freshman and sophomore, you fit right in. At 19, 20 years old in the 80s and 90s, there would have been no chance you would have survived. Because you're talking about grown men with kids probably the age, your age, playing against you in the physicality of the game. So yeah, I don't think the word is overlooked anymore. I think it's more undervalued for those guys who stay in school a little longer than people think, who are not one and done. And I think they end up being better pros over the long run because they're more mature.
Got it. That's it.
That was one question, Derek.
Well, who's the quickest player you've? I have a bunch of questions. Don't let me get started. Who's the quickest player you ever played against?
The quickest.
Yeah. Because that's one of the things I noticed.
That's a loaded question, because the quickest player probably was Muggsy Bogues.
Okay.
But I don't know if he was the fastest.
Right.
You know, like
quick and fast. I've been trying to.
Yeah. You know, like he was quick because he was so small. He was also fast. I don't know if he was the fastest. Like the fastest to me was Ricky Green.
Ricky Green.
Of Utah Jazz.
Okay.
He was so fast.
Now that surprised me before when you were saying that the big transition to the pros from college was how fast everybody got and how the court shrunk. Yeah. I thought it would be the physicality, but when you think about it, you're talking about high school or college, that's 4 years from 22 to 18. Big difference than 26 to 22, right?
Yeah, that's the difference. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about, you're not even developed yet at 18. You're not really, 21. Yeah, now you got a little girth to you. Your play's done growing. You probably gain some weight and get in a great room with a professional strength coach. But, I mean, 17-year-old playing against a 20-year-old is a big difference. 20-year-old playing against a 25-year-old is not that much of a difference.
And I can tell you, in every sport, everybody says when they go from college to the pros, the speed of play is amazing.
Yes, it's amazing.
Speed of play is amazing.
If people don't understand that, you should just go to a game. If you get to a live game, you'll see how fast it is. Right. You know, like I didn't know how fast hockey was until I went to a hockey game in person. And how they change ends so quick. I was like, holy cow! And these on skates. Yeah, like, that was amazing when I watched a hockey game in person.
Right.
And you realize that they can only play 1 minute shifts because they use up all their energy in 1 minute shifts.
It's crazy. It's crazy. So.
And then you mentioned something else earlier about gaps in the game. I think I know what that means, but could you elaborate? So you said that there were no more gaps in the game from college to pro.
Yeah, I mean, in college, you know, if you're quick enough or had a good enough ball handling skills, you could beat a guy and get to a gap in the defense.
Oh, okay.
And elevate a little quicker than in the pros. In the pros, even though you have defensive 3-second rules, and the rules obviously have changed since when I played than what they are now. Those gaps that you thought you can get to off 1 or 2 dribbles, well, just not there anymore, because either the guy's still there that you just guarding you, or the help defense gets over so quick and then recovers. Because of the length and the speed, and learning how to play angles. Like, again, with defense, there's trick is, like you say, that I learned from Dennis Johnson was count dribbles. The other two things he taught me on defense is there's two principles in defense that makes you a good defender. You got to play angles. You got to cut a guy off angles, and you got to be really good at guessing. And that's part of count dribbles. Like, I got to guess what, Kevin Johnson's going to do so I can beat him to that angle. If I guess wrong, I get beat or he's going the other direction. So that's when film comes in, and watching guys and seeing their tendencies and their dribble patterns. So again, there's a lot going into the game other than being able to run faster, jump higher, shoot better than people. There's a lot of mental, jockeying when you're playing against a really good player.
You hear that, Billy?
All you want to do is take away. You want to take away as many strengths as you can. That's anything. That's any sport. If you're a fastball hitter, I'm throwing a bunch of curveballs and knuckleballs and sliders. That's what I'm gonna do. Same thing with basketball. The reason why you see people picking up Steph Curry at half court because one of his strengths is shoot the ball at that range. So he's expanded the game. So now all of a sudden, now you got more space.
Right.
So what shooting does is brings more space to the game. That's what Steph Curry did. He's made the game a space game, and I know it would never happen, and they should make it happen, but it would never happen because it would just mess up the essence of the game. They should make the court wider.
Yeah, I've been thinking that for years.
So court wider. Because the guys are bigger and faster than they were in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah. When you talk about basketball, you're such a student of the game, and as a pro and everything else, it's a different game altogether. Who influenced you the most? I mean, Parrish influenced a lot about life and how to be a pro. Who influenced you the most in your whole career? Teaching, learning.
Ooh, man.
Coach, player, anybody. I don't care. High school, whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's a tough one. I mean, as a player, again, when the young player coming to NBA, I'm always going to say Robert Parrish and Dennis Johnson. Those two guys were two mentors for me. I think a coach that, my high school coach is really good. My first coach, Chris Ford. Chris Ford doesn't get a lot of credit on how good a coach he was. Obviously, won a championship with the Celtics, played with Larry Bird, was the first player in NBA history to hit a three-point shot. So that's a little media stuff, little knowledge thing. But I respected Chris Ford as a coach my rookie year because he was a guy that number one, he never knew my name the whole year. He just called me Rook. Like I don't think he called me D until like my second year. Number one. And number two is that he treated Larry Bird like everybody else. Like he would cuss Larry Bird out so bad. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, wow. And the respect he had, the respect that Larry Bird had, and Kevin and Robert for Chris Ford showed me what hard coaching is to superstars. And you had to hold your best players accountable, and they were the most responsible. And he did that, and it filtered down. And I value that. When I became captain of the Celtics, I took a responsibility of saying, "Listen, coach, if you want to make an example, cuss me out. I know you might listen. It might not be my fault, but go at me. I'm the best player on this team right now. Go at me," because he did Larry that way, and I respected that as a young player to see a coach did that, and it inspired me. When I got to coaching too, to understand, like, listen, the most talented players sometimes are not your best leaders. Because you're talented, make you a leader. Sometimes that's ingrained, sometimes that's taught. Chris Ford wasn't the best player, but to me, he was a heck of a leader on our team. And he's one guy that kind of he helped me with my after basketball journey, get into coaching in the front office journey of understanding how to be a leader and responsibility and accountability and those type of things as when you start talking to other grown men and adults who are on the same level as you, how to get the best out of them.
Well, speaking of leaders, Jay has got a great one in Dee Brown. We want to thank you for coming on, Dee. You've been a terrific.
Unbelievable guest.
Thank you. Now, Frank, I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you all three guys a question before we leave.
Okay.
I'll give you a trivia question.
Okay.
And I'll see if you can get it. So y'all are basketball students, and this transcends all three of you guys' basketball lifetimes. Okay. Who is the only Celtics player to play with Russell, Havlicek, and Bird?
Russell, Havlicek, and Bird.
Yes.
Parrish.
Nope. He didn't play with Havlicek or Russell.
Oh, I probably played for.
No, played with.
No, Parrish probably played for Russell.
No, he wasn't there yet. He was still with Golden State.
Sam Jones? Sam Jones?
Close.
Casey? Satch?
Casey.
Yeah,
Casey. All right.
good, guys.
Yeah.
We got between the two of us. We got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
No. It's not Casey. No,
it ain't.
No, it's not Casey.
Oh,
It's not Casey. That was always the one everybody said. It was close. He played with two of them. It wasn't Casey. It's not an obscure guy too. It's like, when I say the name, you'll know who it is.
It's not Satch?
Nope.
Then I'm lost.
It's a tricky question. It's a tricky
O'Neal.
question. No. Here's a catch to it. He played Russell's last year and Bird's first year. So now think about it. Russell, when did Russell retire? Russell retired
69?
Yeah. Bird came 79. So it's a 10-year span. So it's not out of the reach. See, what happens when people get confused in that kind of trivia, they think Russell, they think like, the 50s. They think Bird, the 80s. They think nobody played 30 years. Right. That's what throws everybody else. So it's a really short period of time. I'll give you one more hint. He was coach of the year 1 year in the NBA. And
Cowens.
No. That was good. That was a guess everybody said.
That's a good guess,
That's a
Cowens.
good guess.
Cowens, who had some great matchups with artists.
Yes. I'll give you the answer. Ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cheney.
Who?
Don Cheney.
Cheney.
Yes.
Yeah, I never get that in a million years. I never get that.
The Duck.
Yes.
I would never get that.
He played Russell's last year and Bird's first year.
Wow.
I'm really glad you came.
Havlicek was in that little time at the same time before these guys came.
Wow.
I'm really glad you talked about the Chamberlain's dominance, because we have that argument all the time. When everybody Russell and Chamberlain.
You were gone, Billy. He did talk about Chamberlain.
I know.
But he also said the greatest winner of all time was Bill Russell.
Yeah, I was cool for that. I got hooked off. Yeah. I was ostracized.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve. You were terrific, man. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I got kicked off. I wanted to savor every word.
Those are the best part of the episode.
All right, guys.
That was fantastic.
Appreciate you.
Thanks.
So long, D. Thanks, man.
Welcome.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed any of that episode, man. That guy was just great. I mean, the things he was talking about, you just don't hear or read.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a good get for us. A good get, a good show.
He was great, man. He was very informative.
Yeah, he was really. Some of the stories were just terrific.
Yep.
Frank's ready to go. All right.
We've been on a long time, so we'll say goodbye and we'll see you next week.
Frank's got to pee, Bill.
All right, brothers. Goodbye, everybody. Take care. Thank you very much for looking in.
I actually don't, but I might soon. All right, see you all.
All right, bye.
See you, guys.
Next week's guest, 7-time Emmy Award-winning sports journalist and author, Roy Firestone.
We'll see you next week.